reassigning and reusing all of our components, most of our components that we received in our starter kits. So what I would like to do is I just want to recap a little bit in terms of what did we have in our kit. So when we look at what we're going to be reassigning to build anything, whether it is a satellite payload, whether it is a ground station, whatever it may be, or even our suborbital payload that is not going to be deployed into space as an independent satellite, we need 4 elements. We need an input, an output, a processor, and a power. And we have all of those in our kits. And we've designed these xChips very, very specifically so that they can be reused. And the components do get reused again and again and again, which is a great thing, because really we don't want to create more electronic waste. There is just so much electronic waste, and it's a huge scourge on our planet. So let's have a look at input. So there are sensors that we are going to be reusing. Dr. Cassie, I'm pleased that you're back.
I didn't get
great.
the report fast enough.
No, that's oh, okay. That's perfect. I know the feeling. And so yes. So what are the inputs that we're still going to use? What are the sensors that we're going to reuse with our payload? And that is that definitely we can reuse the light sensor in terms of visible light and UV index. And through the program, what we're going to do is we will have a science session as well as an engineering session on how we can use this light sensor in our payloads. And when we cover it in that section, what we'll do is we're also going to share with you a 3D printable file, so that what you can do is, even though the sensor itself is really tiny, what we'll be able to do, I actually had one over here, is what you could do is you could actually have a mirror at 45 degrees using one of those little mosaic tiles, mirror tiles. And so what we have is we have a 3D printable file for a holder for one of those, so that what you can do is, even if your payload is lying flat, you'd still be able to get the light to it. So that could be a really, really interesting experiment to run. And so we're definitely going to be reusing the light sensor. And then in terms of the weather sensor, air temperature and relative humidity, this sensor is still going to be very useful, even though as we leave the atmosphere, it's not the payload bay is not going to be pressurized. So what we are going to find is that we are going to lose our atmosphere in the bay. However, it's going to be very interesting to be able to measure that air temperature as the atmosphere gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and also perhaps to have a look at the relative humidity in the payload bay. Often condensation can be a challenge, and so what are we going to see in terms of condensation, or are we, whatever it may be, it's still going to be a very useful sensor to have. We're going to be adding more sensors. So as we go through each workshop, what you will receive is a number of add-on sensors. So you're going to receive your accelerometer, or in the industry, in the satellite industry, it's referred to as an IMU, an inertia measuring unit. And that will give you acceleration, magnetometer, and gyroscope in X, Y, Z. I say Z, of course, because I've got British English, UK English, so X, Y, Z. And and so, yes, you'll receive your accelerometer. What you're also going to receive is a gas sensor, which is going to give you carbon dioxide and volatile organic compounds. And that's going to be really useful because we are working with a bio-derived gas. And since it's a bio-derived gas, we're going to have a combustion reaction. So we are expecting to have some organic compounds, if not only simply carbon dioxide. So you'll be receiving that one as well. And then we are on what we're doing is that we're modifying the core, the CPU section. And what we're going to have on that is there's going to be a connector for one of these really small cameras, one of these really small pinhole cameras on one of these ribbon connectors. So you'll be able to connect that, and you'll also be receiving a GPS unit with a detachable antenna. We won't be able to use the GPS unit on the flight. However, you may, building up to that, you may actually want to do a high altitude balloon challenge project. You may want to actually do some remote sensing, wilderness sensing, etc. So under those circumstances, the GPS would really be useful. And it's a very useful element to have in terms of the repertoire of chips that you have. So yes, we're going to be reusing some of the sensors, and then you're also going to be receiving more sensors. Then if we have a look at what can we reuse in terms of the outputs that we have, we're not going to be using the screen in terms of our payload for our launch. However, we may actually find that some of the groups want to monitor, for example, the carbon dioxide in the environment surrounding the launch, what happens with the rocket combusting all of that bio-derived fuel. So they may actually want to use that. So in that case, what they would do is that they would build themselves another instrument, and there they certainly would perhaps want to use their screen, or at least to configure it for Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. They'll be wanting to use their screen. So this core that we have with the ESP32 is identical to the one that we're going to have with our flight hardware. So what we're going to do is that our flight hardware is only going to be ready, that particular core is only going to be ready during April. So what we needed to do is we needed to do another prototype round, but we've received those and everything is perfect. So we know we've got our design right. We had to change one of the components because of chip shortage. It came as a little bit of an extra surprise. We thought we were over all of those surprises. However, the main CPU unit we're still going to be using. So what we can do is we can actually start with our coding and our programming using the core that we have. The main thing is we're just not going to be using those touchpads. Those touchpads are going to be disabled. So we're not going to be using those. And then definitely our USB serial communication. We're going to start applying that because we're going to have two mechanisms during our flight. We're going to have two mechanisms of saving our data, or at least receiving our data from our sensors. The one is going to be that we're going to have an SD card, very similar to the one that I have here on this a flight station for my high altitude balloon mission. So we're going to have an SD card saving the data, but we're also going to have a serial port for the downlink. So we're going to need to get our serial communication running, and so that is why we're going to be reusing this particular component. By the way, if you want to interrupt me, you really must. I'm very happy to be interrupted. So yes, here we can see the front. We can see the front here. So those touch pads will be disabled in terms of the code, or at least they won't be enabled. so we can use this component to its fullest. And yeah, what's really nice about it is that Bianca was a few days ago, what he was doing is he was actually he was testing whether he could actually flash the code over the Bluetooth, and he found that he was certainly able to get packets across using Bluetooth, which is really, really, really great, because it's a really nice protocol. Another thing that the Bluetooth is very useful for is for determining distance and proximity. So from other similar Bluetooth devices. So that's used a lot in when we look at industrial IoT, where there's a number of relay stations or whatever, let's say across a factory floor. What it is that they actually use Bluetooth, because Wi-Fi is just too energy consuming, and also Wi-Fi routers are very limited to how many connections they can make. Whereas with Bluetooth, it's really great, especially the new BLE, as they refer to it as BLE5, which is Bluetooth low energy version 5. So that is really going to be useful for the students, even into the future, in terms of building their own Internet of Things projects, this particular core. So what it is that we are going to be overwriting it with our new code, our new flight hardware code. But the thing is, what you can do is you can always reinstall the original code that it came with. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the Mu editor to do that. And through the process, as we go through the different coding exercises, you will become very familiar with Mu editor and how that works. There's a very strong community behind Mu editor that supports it. So that is why what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to support that community. And then, yes, as I mentioned, we're certainly going to be using our USB. With our flight payload, what is going to happen is that we're going to be provided power from the payload bay. And so at this stage, we may or may not want to actually fly our own batteries. I think that certainly some of the groups may want to fly their own rechargeable battery, because that would actually maybe be part of the test. One of the things that's really important when designing satellites is to understand the effect of the thermocycling on the batteries and battery efficiency. So in terms of when a satellite is in orbit and it's in full sunlight, the satellite gets very hot, and because we have no atmosphere, one can't ventilate it, one can't, it's very difficult to have heat exchange to get rid of that heat. So actually it's heating the satellite is not actually the challenge, it's cooling the satellite that becomes the challenge. And what happens is that the resistance increase, the resistance gets affected in terms of our circuitry. Our battery efficiency starts to decrease over certain temperatures, etc. And also the same with very low temperatures. We're going to be, with this suborbital flight, we're going to be experiencing extremely low temperatures. And so there are a number of groups who may want to test what happens to our circuit, you know, when we get to really low temperatures. Is it able to cope? Are our batteries able to cope at these really low temperatures? So that is why I'm saying, even though we are going to be supplied power from the payload bay, some groups may still want to fly their rechargeable batteries as a practice run for orbital satellites. Yeah, and so what it is that I wanted to cover in this section today is we're going to become very reliant on the dashboard, on the Kibana dashboard. as we go through the program. So I really would encourage you, and I really would encourage the students to go through that video of getting started with Kibana. I have the details here. Once again, it's data.maxiq.space is the web address. When it asks you for the username, that will be data, and the password is maxiq. And then when we go to the index, we select the SDG index. But I'm going to do a live demo for you now to actually show that to you. And so, yes, I really would like the students to get au fait with the dashboard, because understanding the concept of how we relay the data through the internet to an MQTT server, how an MQTT server actually compartmentalizes the data, and then how that data, those data packets, then move so that we can then analyze them effectively. This whole thing of moving the data packets is one of the biggest challenges that we have with CubeSats, is that losing packets of data, or otherwise the packets of data being corrupted. So this is something that we need to start working on sooner rather than later, in terms of understanding why it's important that we package the data into these data packets, and how we make sure that we have the correct communication protocols for that data to be communicated and relayed. So in order to get everybody busy with using the dashboard, this is the exercise for the next few days. Does the fridge light really go off when we close the door? So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so how would you go about that experiment? Testing whether the fridge light actually really does go off when the door is closed, using the sensors that we have.
Well, I would have a battery pack, and I would set that with my sensors that I already have in the refrigerator, and wait for a certain amount of time, and then go back, open it up, take it out, look.
Yeah.
Has Ruthan's she's frozen for me.
Frozen momentarily, yeah.
Okay, let's just Ruthan, I'm terribly sorry for you. You froze for a minute. I think she's reconnecting because her camera's gone as well. Okay.
So the big question at this point is, how do we either record the data when it's in there by itself, or get signals from the sensor while it's sitting in the refrigerator?
Yeah, absolutely. So
I would find
yeah.
the switch that turns off the light and see if it works when the door opens and closes.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, short of climbing into the fridge ourselves to read the data off the screen, what we need to do is we need to remote sense. So that is why we need the dashboard, because the data needs to be communicated via the Wi-Fi and via the internet to the dashboard. And so what we do is we put the kit into the fridge, close the door, and then we watch the data on the dashboard. So this is so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my Chrome. So if I'm just going to share my browser over here. Can you see my browser here? So I've gone to data.maxiq.space, and it's asked me for a username and a password. So my username is data, And my password, it's not showing, but is actually just simply max IQ all lowercase. So I'm going to sign in. Okay. Now what I need to, the next thing I need to do is it defaults to the weather station index, but I need to change this index. So using this drop down, let me actually just,
Can we just watch what you're doing?
Sorry?
Can we just watch? Can you just share that so we can see your screen as you change
Is it
things?
not
And so we know,
sharing?
so I'll know what I'm expecting when I go there.
Oh, that's so interesting. It wasn't sharing. Okay, just hang on a second. That's so interesting because it seemed to jump out. Okay. So I'm just trying to make it a little bit bigger. I'm trying to zoom in a little bit. Zoom in. Okay, so there we go. Right, let me try sharing that again. Okay. Okay, can you see that? It says in big, unfriendly letters, no results found.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is on Discover. So what I've done is that I've opened this drop down where it says weather station, and you can see
Right.
here, this is a whole series of indexes. So an index with an MQTT server is a lot like a shelf in a kind of like in a reference library. That what it is that when the data comes in, it wants to know which index it needs to go to. MQTT servers were actually developed quite a while back for journalists, for news. And what used to happen is that different journalists and different news agencies, what they would do is they would subscribe to an index. So there would be news that was coming in regarding the financial markets or about weather, whatever it is, and then they would subscribe to the weather index or the markets index or whatever it was. So in this case, what we do is we subscribe to the SDG index. So if we go there, and what we can see is that there's a number of kits actually that are connected at the moment, because this is the count. So we can see here over the last 15 minutes, there's more than 20 kits that are connected anywhere in the world that are just posting data. So that means that there's a number of students who are posting. And so if we actually just open one of these data points, we can do that. So I've just expanded it a little bit, and it tells us it gives us all of this data, right? It gives us the chip frequency, you see here's the ESP32, that's the chip that it's running. So this connection is San Jose in California. So this is not giving us the address of where the student has connected their kit. Okay, so it's not a GPS location of where they've connected it to their router. What this is this is the city where the internet provider, where their business is registered. Okay, so that'll be probably in San Jose, because maybe they're using one of the big telcos or something like that for connectivity, and they're in Silicon Valley. But they could actually be anywhere in the US. So when I connect my kits, it always comes out as Johannesburg in South Africa, because I'm with Vodacom, and that is where that's their registered address in South Africa. It doesn't say where I am in Cape Town. So it gives us an idea of, basically, I would say, country more than anything else. So then what it does is it shows us internet SSID, Netgear 81. That means that somebody hasn't even changed it from like the generic naming convention, which means that it must be some home internet, which is probably a little bit at risk because they haven't actually given it a unique name. But if you see, as you can see, it's not giving me the password, which is also fine. And so we can see over here that there's some ambient light, 176 lux, an unbelievably low UV index, which means it's probably inside. UV rating is none. But what this could do is this could vary from, in terms of safety, in terms of, is it not harmful, slightly harmful, very harmful, UV index rating. The soil moisture is 5, which means that they have connected the soil moisture sensor, but it's just in a very dry environment. Otherwise, it wouldn't even mention the soil moisture sensor. If it's not connected, it doesn't even appear. They haven't given it a group name or a unit name. The version is 0.3, which is correct. That's their code. And so now here we have the cloud base that's being calculated is just over 2 kilometers. It's in meters, so it's just over 2,000 meters. What would be the temperature in those clouds is -2 degrees centigrade. The dew point is just over freezing. The heat index is 17, which is nominal, so it's actually very safe. And the humidity, relative humidity is 29, their temperature is 19. So it must be indoors in winter, and wet bulb temperatures slightly less than 10 degrees. And here's the MAC address of that unit. So if, for example, at a school, if you wanted to white label that particular MAC address, this is where we would find the MAC address. And -43 Wi-Fi RSSI, which means that they've got an okay Wi-Fi connection. It's not too bad, it's not too good. That seems okay. So what I've done is that I've gone through this because it actually shows you what data is available on the dashboard that is not available on this tiny little screen that we have. So because a lot of these are calculations that we've put in. So it's taking, for example, with the cloud base, it's taking the temperature and the relative humidity and it's calculating the cloud base. And then what we have is if we go to dashboard, actually, no, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to look for, let's say I'm going to look for one of my kits. So I know I had something that was called Herb Garden. So let's just see what happens there. Okay, I know it's not collected because I actually gave it to my friend down the road, Sarah, a few days ago. So I know that it's not, she's changed the name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the last 6 months. Okay. And so we can see over here that, yes, it was connected in the last 6 months. So what I can do is that I can zoom in on that data. And we can see here, it's called JS Herbs. Let's get a little bit more information on that. So it's connected to, it should say, yeah, it's connected to our Wi-Fi, which is called Vikings Friends. Our Great Dane dog is called Viking. So our guest Wi-Fi is called Vikings Friends. We have 2 Great Danes in the household because my husband's Danish. So that's why I had to refer to the Great Dane dog, because if anybody asks me if our Great Dane makes a lot of noise, I always ask which one. So, so that's Viking. And yeah, my unit name, and then you can see here, I had actually put in a group name when I configured it for the Wi-Fi. I actually said this is part of the Intelsat project that I'm running with the students across the African continent, so that's fine. You could see here that my cloud temperature is relatively warm, 14 degrees centigrade. My dew point was 16. My heat index is 24. Which is also, that's okay, that's comfortable, so it's nominal. Relative humidity on that particular day was high, 60%. Temperature 24 degrees centigrade, and that makes a lot of sense because we're in summer at the moment and I'm very close to the coast. Wet bulb temperature 18 and my MAC address and an okay Wi-Fi signal. So what I can do now is I can actually go to dashboard. And so if I click on dashboard on the left-hand side, you'll see what it does. It opens hundreds of dashboards that all of the students have saved for themselves and configured for themselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see, I didn't do anything in terms of Herb. Did I do anything in terms of Judy? And I'm probably something to do with Intelsat. There we go. Judy, Intelsat dashboard 2022. So here is my dashboard. So here I have everything that relates to temperature. If it's in degrees C. So I've got air temperature, dew point, heat index, wet bulb. Then I've got ambient lights. I have cloud base, average cloud base over that period, UV index. And then what I haven't got here for some reason is I haven't got my light. Oh, here's my light. Here's my ambient light. So if you can imagine that what I could have done is over this period, if I'd taken this kit and I'd put it into the fridge, after a few minutes, I would have seen on this dashboard a huge response to that changing environment. So when I close the fridge door, I would hope that the temperature would decrease to the 2 or 3 degrees that I set the fridge at from the 20 odd degrees centigrade that it was at. Okay, so that is the indication that yes, I've closed the fridge door and the fridge is working. Is it this radical temperature drop? And what I should also see is that the light had gone to 0 or the lux level had gone to very close to 0. Assuming that the fridge light turned off. So this is pure remote sensing because I wasn't going to be in the fridge to observe it myself. And so that is why this is a really great experiment for the students to conduct to make sure that they have actually configured their dashboards. So how do we get to this? So what I have done, and I cover this in the video, is that there is an SDG template dashboard, okay? So if we have a look here at this SDG template dashboard, what it is, and let me actually go back to, I just want to do a quick, let's say, I can say over the last 30 days. What it is that the students put their kit name in here so that it's configured to look for data only from their kits and not an average of everybody's. And then actually to save it as their own. So when one goes to save, one then saves it as a new dashboard with their own name. And this is all covered in the video. It's a 3-4 minute video, which takes them through how to actually develop their own, how to just configure their own dashboard with their own kits. So I'm just going to close that without saving it. So
I haven't seen that video yet. Where do I find that?
Okay, so what we have is we've got our page where we have all of the I sent out the link earlier to that page. You'll see it on the page. There's the getting started video of how to connect your kits, and then getting going with Kibana. So it's there. It's all there on that page.
All right,
all the links that you're going to need.
I've been exploring the links. I probably just haven't done that one yet.
Okay, great. Perfect. So yeah, any questions regarding that? Cassie.
Sorry, I was like, this whole time I have these little sad frowny faces on my screen saying no data found, and I forgot totally to change it to the number of days. It was only looking for the last 15 minutes. It's just like, why do I have all these unhappy people all over my screen, and I realized I forgot to actually change the time frame.
No, yeah, absolutely. And there's another question that you may have from your students, is that what they'll do is they'll say, yeah, but the thing is that, I'm reading it off the screen and the screen says that my temperature is 15 degrees centigrade. But when I look at the dashboard, it's saying 20. Why is that? And that is because what they haven't done is that they haven't put their kit name in here and searched for the data from their kit only. What they're doing is that they're getting an average of all the kits that are connected at the same time. And if we consider that we've got kits connected in Egypt and Nigeria and Uganda and Kenya and Rwanda and South Africa experiencing, summer, then yeah, the average is probably it's definitely going to be higher than a student's going to experience in the US, especially on the East Coast at the moment. I mean, Jim, I believe it's been really, really cold. It's really cold where you are at the moment.
Yeah, we had a record high yesterday, and then the temperature fell, I think 35 C overnight.
Yeah,
something like that.
It.
Outrageous amount.
Absolutely, so that's why the students they're going to be like tapping on it and saying, hey, what are you doing? So that's one of the things, is where the reading that they're getting is average because they haven't actually saved their dashboard for their particular kit. Also, there's another thing, and that is that on some of the visualizations, what they need to do is that they just need to make sure that that their kit name is saved there as well. So let me just share my screen again.
And Judy, I have a question.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I know that I sent out a little poll to all the teachers on campus right before we left for break. And I know we're gonna be able to put kits in the cafeteria, the nurse's office, the gym, right at the entry of where all the buses pick up and the cars pick up. So we're gonna get all these different gases and stuff. Is there a way, because I know of what you just said, it's gonna take an average of any kit that is attached. Is there a way that we could, I guess it would be all in the name. If I name them all like MVES and then kit 1, and if I just looked up MVES, would it just take the average of just all those kits so that I would just have an average of on campus? So that it can pull like, where is the coldest spot? Like, I would think that the cafeteria's light would be going on and off the most, even though I have a refrigerator in my room and we have ones in the workroom. I would think the one in the cafeteria is going to be doing the most in and out, in and out, in and out. Is there a way that I can do that in a search where I can just only search on my campus? Is it the naming protocol that I have to ensure just goes the same, like the beginning part, and then just add them all up? Because I think we have 15.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that because of a quandary I was in a few weeks ago, is because I used to name all my kits starting with Judy with my name. What was happening is that a number of my visualizations was giving me an average across different kits. So so the thing is that if you're going to have one like in the hallway or whatever, just call it, start with a common name and then space hallway or whatever it is, because what you may want to do is you may actually want to have some visualizations that just give you the different points, and then one that gives you the average.
Okay.
That could be quite interesting. So what I'm going to do is let me show you, if I can just share my screen again, I want to show you my dashboard that I developed last year. I was growing some chilies. Okay, Judy, chili comparisons. Okay. Oh, yeah. You see, last 30 days. No. Last year. That's very nice. Come. Okay, so that's where it was. Okay, so the thing is that okay, so if I just go over that period, let's just zoom in a little bit closer. Okay, so what I did is I was growing two different whatever they're called, cultivars or whatever. I had paprika. Can you see this, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I had paprika and I had cayenne pepper, and I planted them at exactly the same time, and I had them on exactly this right next to each other on the same windowsill and everything. And I was tracking the data, and then I was also taking photographs, and it was quite interesting because the paprika was growing a lot faster than the cayenne pepper. And I planted these in, okay, when was this period? September. Okay, September last year. And the paprika has been having chilies and having a great, wonderful time. And the cayenne pepper has only started flowering for the first time now. So it's quite interesting how much slower it's been growing. And then, yeah, what I did is I was also looking at soil moisture. It's just also quite interesting how the paprika soil moisture was very different from the cayenne pepper. And I was really careful how much water I was giving them. You know, I was measuring it literally to the milliliter. I weighed the potting soil, so I had exactly the same grams in each. Ruthann, I'm pleased you're back. Sorry, we lost you for a while.
Well, my internet went completely off for some reason. We're having some bad rainstorms. I guess that may be the problem.
Could be.
But
I'm so sorry. We missed
sorry,
you.
I hope I. Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I missed you all too.
No, but it's fine. You know what the thing is, you know, you and I are going to catch it up tomorrow, so don't worry.
Yeah, we'll see
Cool.
you tomorrow. I
All
will,
good.
and I'll look at what I missed on the video.
Absolutely. So I'm just going through this comparison, and then I looked at the lights that was coming through, etc. And then what I did is that I only had one particle matter sensor connected. So I've just used this for both. However, you'll see here that if you see where I've got paprika temperature, if I go into this visualization, I click on the little pencil, what it does is it takes me to that visualization, and there I've put in the name paprika. So Cassie, you know, to your point is that even though this kit itself was called Judy Space Paprika, because I wanted only the data for paprika, I put that in when I saved the visualization itself. Okay. However, if I go back to the dashboard, if I go to this one where I only had one, if I go to that visualization, I knew it was called JS something, so I didn't worry about, you know, the rest of the name. So certainly, I'm very confident that if you, what you could do is if you have different names, yeah, if you split the name of your different kits with a space in between, that what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to have comparisons of all of the data from the individual kits at the school, and then you'll also be able to have an overall, an average. I think also maybe, I don't know, I mean, also discuss it with your students, because what you may